welcome. These will be my thoughts on Arrow Season 2, Episode 13, Heir to the Demon. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video there will be spoilers for the episode and all the ones leading up to it. Another episode I absolutely love. Let's dive right in. So, I really love the way this show introduces... I guess I don't know if... Are we calling her a villain? She's an antagonist to the episode, certainly. A case could be made that she's more anti-hero, because, like, she does some bad stuff, but we can understand where she's coming from. You know, she's doing it out of love, which I'm reliably informed is the most powerful emotion. Which, once again, I do agree. Yeah. Nissa. Wasn't surprised by her last name. Was slightly surprised by her first name, but I'm not 100% sure if... It's not a spoiler to say... I will leave it at that for now. But yeah, you know, she's arriving, and the, very clever, the thing about, you know, Argus threat, which, yeah, as soon as we find out, like, the moment that it became clear, okay, she's with the League of Assassins, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure those would classify as Argus threat. And yeah, the guy claims, you know, oh, my computer froze up, you know, good cover. And yeah, a guard walks, you know, gets his gun out, walks very close to her. I don't know if there's something in the air. People need to stop doing that when dealing with Nissa in this episode, because it doesn't work out well. But you know, it's the classic thing of, like, well, you know, if the other person has a gun, you know, they kind of, we need that person close to her in order for her to fight her way out. Rule of cool applies. But yeah, you know, it's for a second it seems like she might be, you know, going along with what she's being told, but she was pulling a hitman and fake surrendering, and yeah, just unbelievably cool. Yeah, you know, takes out that guy, takes out a couple more, and just walks out like it's nothing. It's Tuesday for her, you know. She doesn't usually get out of bed if she has to kick less than a dozen asses, but for Sarah, she's willing to make an exception. And I think that does bring us to... So yeah, Oliver goes to talk to see Laurel in hospital, and I forget if I've outright said, but even if I have, it bears repeating. I do really appreciate that the relationship has evolved so much between him and, you know, yeah. What have I been calling him? Copficer. Lance, you know, because, like, there's parts of the first season where he would have been like, you get out of here right now, you know, which technically, you know, the two of them are family. If they don't want him in there, you know, like, you know, visiting hours thing rules, I'm pretty sure the family is allowed to kick someone out who's not, like, short of it being like law enforcement there to do their job. I guess it is their job, even when it's absolutely awful. I finally got around to watching the two most recent Lindsay Ellis videos on Nebula. So the Bluey one isn't particularly relevant to this video, but it is a really good video. And the other one is about body cam footage, and that does feel appropriate to bring up here. And it just, yeah, holy crap. It was, yeah, as usual, she makes really great videos. I'm so glad that even though she hardly ever posts to YouTube anymore, is still making videos. It's, yeah. But yeah, very nice to see that Copficer Lance is no longer on his Graham Linehan crusade against Oliver, which segues nicely into... you'll be the judge. It segues, I think, into me mentioning that, it's not a fun watch, but Essence of Thought did a fantastic video talking about, Graham Linehan doesn't seem like there's going to be justice there, which really, really sucks. But, if you're sufficiently bigoted, there are countries where you can get away with just, And unfortunately right now, England is one of them. America also. So, that's also definitely something that really needs addressing. But several really great things there in the scene. So, remember when I was talking about this episode in this video and not just saying what YouTube videos you should, and Nebula videos you should go watch? But the fact that Dinah, is back, and this is the kind of thing that gets her back. It really sucks for the family that's the kind of thing it takes for her to come back. I guess we don't know if she's going to stay this time, because now she knows Sarah's alive, and that was the big thing that, she left last time. When that was also very, very nicely done on, I forget, maybe I already mentioned that when Sarah reappeared, we saw earlier in the season her having survived. But in the first season, there was that thing about, like, Dinah was convinced and managed to convince Copficer, at the time, that detective Lance, and it's that is the kind of thing where, the fact that they didn't find her there doesn't necessarily mean that she's dead, but Laurel, didn't want to, she already saw how bad it hurt last time they struggled to accept. So, and let's see. I think, so there were a couple of other things about that scene, and I should probably... This video is going to take an absolute eternity if I spend this long on every scene. Yes, the thing about the eye, which, because of the Venom, and that's not the Marvel character, who I'm still hoping will eventually be in a really good movie. They're 0 for 4 so far, but I remain optimistic. But the not for Sony though. I'm hoping the rights will, that the MCU will get a crack at it. Anyway, yes, the I think, what was the other thing that I do feel a tiny bit bad about, criticizing. So, I'm technically sort of criticizing Sam Raimi here, because one of those movies was one of his, but I do still really, really love his work. I can hardly wait for Send Help. I just earlier today finished rewatching Army of Darkness, and, like, holy crap, when he gets it right, he is just spectacular. Just the entire movie, really, but maybe the last third or so especially. Wow. Anyway, yes, the and the thing that, Laurel said, I saw Sarah. I mean, I've dreamt about her, but this felt different. It felt so real. And very nicely done there, because, like, at that point in the episode, Laurel is still, you know, she would still be really happy about Sarah coming back. But then by the end of the episode, you know, their mom was kidnapped as a response to Sarah. So yeah, um, and it's one of those things that sometimes can be difficult to accept in reality as well. Thinking that something might be a certain way and learning that it is are not necessarily gonna, you might think, oh, I would be very happy if that happened, but then it actually happens and you start to actually think and yeah, it's just so I'm obviously not saying, oh, you should live your life in constant fear of things you think would make you happy. I'm just saying, if you're making a huge life decision, really think it through, cost-benefit analysis, that. Let's see, yeah, and he, Officer Lance, has to, you know, he can't tell Laurel because, it would still be dangerous for her if she knew about Sarah. So he has to really muster up all of the training that he got to just lie, like, to a ridiculous degree, which they do teach American cops. Anyway, I think that does bring us... Am I going too ACAB too early in the video? I'll try to ease off. But the for this video. But the yes, I think, yeah, fantastic visual. How do you visualize? Well, it was do they call it poisoning, or is that only when it's poison and not venom? I forget. She was venomed. And we see the little thing in her eye, and then later we see it again, let's see, on Sarah. So, yeah, very, very nicely done on that. It's, I'm not 100% sure that you can see by looking at someone's eye if they have venom in their system, but it's, comic book media. So I think that does maybe bring us to the... Does that get us to the first flashback, maybe? I really appreciate them doing... this isn't the very first one, but them having flashbacks to stuff other than the island, I think, really works. And, yeah. So I know I've already praised, but it really does bear repeating. The way these actors modulate their performances, because, like, yeah, the flashbacks in this episode, other than at the very end, that is definitely, yeah, that's both Sarah and, Officer Lance as, before the crash. I was trying to figure out whether to call it an accident or a sabotage, but crash of the Queen's Gambit, And, yeah. Oh, and I mean, Laurel and Mom as well. Just, yeah, through and through fantastic. And, seeing him cook, it's just like, I swear I'm not trying to just say it all the time. It just has come up several times recently. I think it's wonderful when men are willing to cook for their partners. It's such a... Yeah. I'm not saying you have to learn, like, a million different... Like, I pretty much just say the one thing I was okay at was spaghetti sauce. But, yeah, people were pretty happy with the spaghetti sauce that yeah, I worked on the exact spices over a while. And it's just so great when you're able to cook for someone you really care about and seeing the look on their face when it's like, wow, this tastes really good. It's just, I'm belaboring the point. We're gonna move on. But yeah, and the the thing about he's on the phone, and the yeah this guy lawyered up. I'm not gonna ACAP. I'm not gonna ACAP. I'm not gonna ACAP. We're gonna move on. And and Laurel is like, thanks. I'm gonna be a lawyer. And and he does the dad thing of saying, I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do with your education, young lady. And you're gonna be a professor like your mom. And Dinah is like, oh yeah, the fun never stops in academia. Never starts either. Yeah, I respect teachers a lot. Both of my parents were. When my father, before my father retired and before my mother died. And then Sarah comes back, and once again, full dad mode. He's like, don't tell me did you leave? Did you drop out? And I love her little comment. It feels so lived in. Like, this is, we haven't spent that much time, especially pre-Gambit crashing. But it feels so real, the relationship between them. Her immediately firing back with thanks for the vote of confidence. And 3-day weekend, that's a thing. They don't always so very nicely done. And the fact that although I guess I'm not 100% sure if she's telling the truth, or did they say if she skipped class to get to go on the Gambit? I don't quite recall. Or to go home early, because it's the Gambit, I guess, was the day after. But yeah, let's see. I think that brings us to the let's see. I feel like, was this around the time when there was a scene of Moira's campaign? So was the first of those? I think the first of those might have been Felicity. Yeah. I do quite appreciate her admitting, I didn't really think this through, did I? I was just going to confront you and hope it worked out. Which, listen, I know you do terrible things, so please don't do one to me. But yeah, Felicity, she's a very honest person. She does not yeah. So that's it. It works really well, and I thought they did a fantastic job of having this tension, and at the same time, it's also I found myself through that entire scene thinking, Moira's not really gonna hurt Felicity, though, is she? And they're continuing to be very careful to write her dialogue around the campaign to every so often have her say something that could be interpreted as a threat. And, as I mentioned in my video on the episode before this one, I think it was the episode for this one, the one where she talked about, she mentioned, Dr. Gill, and she said, we have to make sure he doesn't talk. And it's the kind of thing of is that a threat? Or is she just saying, and yeah, she was just going to pay him off. She was just strategizing. She wasn't actually saying we should hurt him, just pay him off, which is one of those things he doesn't necessarily, it's what's the word? He probably would also have doctor-patient confidentiality, but even so, it doesn't even mean anything bad about him. He might just be thinking I don't want, maybe he doesn't like blood either. Which might mean he shouldn't be a doctor, but nevertheless, sorry, I can do better than that. Nevertheless, we have the, so I like the, there's a Miss Smoke here to see you. Who? Me. Felicity, love the little thing of so she, she does recognize her, remember her, they have, it's not the very first time that they ever have absolutely anything to do with each other, and the they're not necessarily the closest, But yeah, I thought they did really great. Yeah, and the fact that she just, yeah, she deduced it like just 100%. She didn't even have to. Yeah, and quick too. Oh, right. That actually, yeah. The first of those scenes was the strategy meeting in the office building, and yeah, so Felicity talked to Mr. Steele, and I did really love the thing about Felicity. I'm not your boss anymore. You should just call me Walter. And she not only agrees to that and immediately follows it, she imitates the accent and the voice and a really good job too. Okay, Walter. Just and then after that kind of positive like oh this and nice to have the yeah. And he's also he's not the kind of he doesn't like love to lord his power over people. He's not that kind of person. But yeah, she immediately puts her foot in her mouth again by saying, I mean, you divorced her for a reason, which is none of my business, of course. But yeah, and she doesn't trust him to actually talk to Moira, so yeah. And then she says that British people are terrible liars, which I don't know. I think there's a number of British voters who would say that some of the politicians effectively fooled them. But moving on, yes, I think that yes, and Moira agrees. Yeah, they're terrible liars. Did somebody on the writing staff like run afoul of a British person or something? Anyway, the I don't know. I just think it would be really funny if it was like something petty, like they went to London once and took a cab, and the ride lasted like 2 minutes longer than the cabbie said it would because of traffic, and they never forgave it, even though it's been years. Moving on. Yes, the let's see, but yeah, and the first thing Moira does in response is give this sort of compliment that's also like mildly like, wait, is that because she says the exact words, if I believe I'm getting this right. I see why Oliver and Diggle hold your no wait, yeah, Steele, Walter, hold your reasoning in such high regard, which like that's a villain line, like potentially. That's the kind of thing that the villain says when they're admitting to doing the villain thing that the other character deduced about them. But yeah, she says, you shouldn't, if you're not gonna keep this secret for, if you're not worried about Oliver, you should be worried about yourself, which again, like, what are you exactly going to do? But then she, what's the word? She goes, she explains that what she's talking about is that Oliver will always hate her, blame her, and by the end of the episode, that hasn't exactly been disproven. I wouldn't rule it out that's yeah, like they don't. Yeah, pretty much the last time we see them talk in the episode is when she tells him, and I appreciate that happened off screen because like we know what she's going to say. The important thing is how he reacts to it, and that we do see. I think that does bring us to the, let's see, so we have the thing about, yeah, yeah, so the thing about the yeah, Nissa, that was also very very nicely done. The thing about so Oliver is like standing back a little, and Sarah goes to join Nissa, and you have the or wait, was it that sorry, I think it's Nissa who goes to Sarah. But yeah, she gets out the knife, and yeah, very, very effective kind of, yeah, she goes up to her, and after a kiss, you have the thing about, I've had warmer welcomes. I wasn't sure what you were going to do. Me neither. And meanwhile, us in the audience are like, us neither. Very nicely done. And yeah, that's a really strong way to establish the relationship. She genuinely is not sure if she's going to kiss or kill. And let's see. Yeah, I forget if this is like it's. Yeah, I simply don't quite recall for sure if this is the first time that it's for sure confirmed that she is, bi or pan. Because certainly I feel like something between her and Sin might be, but I appreciate they might just be friends, but it's, yes. Let's see. But yeah, appreciate the representation and the fact that, like, nobody actually, not Oliver and not, Officer Lance, none of them say, but I thought you were straight and now you're gay, and like, that whole thing, which, yeah, by 2014, people were, mainstream audience were more ready to accept, hey, that, yeah, bisexuality is a thing that I'm not sure I'm not sure it was mainstream to say pansexual back then. I am not entirely sure if it is today, but yeah, the yeah, like, there's the thing about, he's like, are you sure about Nyssa? But he's talking about the fact that Nyssa's a killer, not the fact that they're both women, her father, I mean. But let's see. Yeah, I like the thing about, do you need your boyfriend's permission? She didn't even need to turn around. She's just like, well, we both know he's there. He's right behind me, isn't he? And yeah, Oliver is very frustrated by, what is it, like 2 hours before he gets a response. And yeah, I think, is this when we get, I think this might be another of the flashbacks. So I also really appreciate the dynamic between Sarah and Laurel, which we had not seen very much of. Like, we'd heard, things, and again, it's just, it feels so authentic. Like, I'm obviously not saying that every sister would, be with the boyfriend of her sister. But this thing of, like, the yeah, the way that Laurel is talking about, she thinks that everything's going to work out with Oliver, and then Sarah, she doesn't come out and say, because, she says, we both know 10 girls he slept with. She doesn't add, I'm the 11th, but, it is still, Laurel is still upset by it, understandably. Let's see, what was the other thing? Yeah, and she says, so I'm not going to use the exact language she did. I don't feel comfortable using that word. It's not for me to say about, whether, I know some women use it, and that's absolutely not for me to comment on. But yeah, so rewording it slightly. She says, I didn't mean to be a jerk. And Laurel says, that could be the title of your autobiography, which, oof. And, this is after they haven't seen each other in a little while. And to be fair, Laurel did start out, like, she notices the texting, so she, turns off the TV. This is very much an episode for people turning off, or, turning off the TV or turning down the volume, that sort of thing. but the it's a very good way to deliver exposition. Some of these scenes, there's exposition on the TV. But yeah, we have the she notices the texting, and she's like, "Are you texting a boy from school?" Which she's showing an interest. She wants her sister to be happy, and the response is, "Are you sure about the guy you're dating?" Which, like, while she's like talking up about, and yeah, that's is really devastating. I 100% understand why by the end of the episode she said to Sarah, "You took my life from me. You ruined everything that's gone wrong for this family has been your fault." Before the Gambit crash, she thought, they're going to move in together. Then she's going to, they're going to be engaged for a year and then get married. And she's going to have a career as a lawyer, the whole, which I thought such a great job of just having, because it doesn't feel like they're doing it for a specific purpose. It feels like just organic dialogue. She's like, "Dad, I'm going to be a lawyer," But yeah, it's not that it's a surprise to anyone watching by this point, obviously, but just, subtly planting in our minds, back then, she thought she was going to spend her adult life as a lawyer, and now she might never get to practice again. And then how's she going to get any good at it, So, yeah, just fantastic. Really, really well done there. I think that brings us to the yeah. I forget if this is the scene where, but at one point in this episode, Oliver, I think they call it CrossFit, which, gonna try not to think of Marjorie Green over that. Oh, sorry, Marjorie Brown. Marjorie Trader. Trump, if you have to explain the joke, it's probably not that funny. Take it from me, someone who is rarely funny. But yes, I think that brings us to the, but yeah, I don't know if it's because it was in this episode but it does also appear in, Batman v Superman. A different character engages in CrossFit there, so yeah, that was a cool, yeah. I didn't love it in that movie. It felt a little try hard. Here, it just feels like part of the character. But the yeah, and we have the thing about tracking the venom, and the let's see, I forget if maybe that's another scene in the layer. But yeah, the thing about the talking to, so Sarah comes back and explains about Nissa, and we again get the important reiteration of the conflict. It's, yeah, this is a major threat to the yeah. By the way, loved that they actually dropped the title, Heir to the Demon, and that the yeah, both her title and the episode title was dropped in dialogue. But the let's see, yes, really loved. So Sarah talking to Nissa, she says, "I can't go back. The killing has to stop, one way or another. Do what you got to do." And when she says that, she means, if you can't release me, which understandable, like, yeah, Malcolm Merlin, bit of a cautionary tale, but she means, if you can't release me, take me out, because I can't, not in that way, because I'm not going back. But Nissa takes it literally and interprets it in a slightly different way, because yeah, she does indeed do what she thinks she has to get the yeah. And I think that does I feel like there's at least one thing that I really wanted to make sure to I think that brings us to the next of the oh, I just realized I completely neglected to talk about. So there's one deleted scene. It's almost too bad that it wasn't in the episode. I think it was cut for time. Roy actually tries to stop. You know, the yeah, the we have the what's the word? Right outside the right after Dinah is taken. You know, yeah, he tries to stop and he gets venomed, and you know it doesn't kill him even though it's a lethal dose, but he also doesn't quite. You know, he fights Nissa, and you know, in part because he's been venomed. You know, it's one of those things they sometimes got to do something to even out the odds, but it's also the fact that he just does not have that kind of training. You know, he's a brawler at this point, basically. I wouldn't rule out that that's going to change, but for now, you know. And yeah, it was a very cool fight, and I think and at the same time, you know, it is one of those things, like, ultimately we don't need to see it. The fact that it's been removed and that, you know, people who only watched it air, you know, they've never seen that, you know, that doesn't really, that's not a problem. Yes, I think the it's not like the story falls apart without it. Yeah, so the campaign, yeah, we have the or I guess I think that does bring us to where, so yeah, you know, Dinah watching over Laurel, and you know, she's going to get water, and then, you know, she's taken, and without Liam Neeson present, it's going to have to be Oliver and Team Arrow. Oh, really love that Moira actually, to intimidate Felicity, she goes, you know, she walks like right behind Felicity, you know, somewhere Gibbs is smiling. And I think that brings us to the, yeah, you know, Officer Lance calling and saying, you know, I want to talk to my daughter. He knew she was there. I guess his daddy sense was tingling. And it is very unfortunate that that word now has both of those largely mutually exclusive definitions. Anyway, yeah, the let's see, yeah, and they realize, you know, this is how Nissa is going to try to compel Sarah back. I feel like that gets us to the campaign speech. Yeah, really nicely done on that. You know, the oh, actually, does it? Maybe it gets us to where the you have the, yeah, I love them talking about, you know, so the venom is actually really easy to, you know, it start losing its potency as soon as it's out of the the tooth of the snake. And that is true of, I'm not sure if it's all, but at least some snake venoms. You know, they're not really made to, you know, the way snakes evolved. It's just like, yeah, you know, they bite and they immediately inject the venom. So yeah, there are some, at least some venoms that are not super effective, barely inconvenience for very long after. And yeah, you know, it was stolen from the zoo, and cops just thought it was a prank. Cause like, who's gonna, you know, steal snake venom for like assassination purposes, you know? And I think that does bring us to, I think it was the actress playing Nissa apparently was also on, crap, what's it called? Spartacus? I think it was, yeah. along with Manu Bennett, and I'm afraid I forget her name, and I'm also not 100% sure how I'd pronounce it, but the actress who plays Amanda Waller on the show. So appropriate that there's an Argus connection between at least two of them. But yes, what was the other thing? Yeah. So they managed to track to the address in the Glades, and they fight the guy, and yeah, very very cool. Like holy crap, 2-on-1, and then eventually Cop the Lance finishes it off. Yeah, and I want you to know sometimes it's difficult not to go more ACAB than I do, but I'm not gonna say it. We're just gonna move on. But yeah, I did like his line. What they didn't teach you about right crosses. Yeah, and yeah, he prays and dies from the venom, and that's the yeah, very very nicely done. It's the kind of thing of like it's too early in the episode for them to find Nisa, and it underlines how difficult it is, and it also means that when they meet Nisa, he's no longer there. Now I remember the thing that I really wanted to. Yeah, so right after she's taken, when she's still in the car, Arrow and Sarah Canary, both chase down. Like holy crap. That was really really cool. Loved her using the. Okay, I'm gonna try, but I'm a little worried I'm wrong. Siren song, I think they call it. That she uses the little device, and by the end of the scene she screams for real. I'm aware of at least one version of Black Canary where it is her actual scream, like her own vocal cords emitting the piercing noise rather than a device. And but yeah, like holy crap. We've already gotten a lot of really awesome stuff where he's on the motorcycle by himself. To have her there, and she jumps onto the car and literally like fighting, and she's knocked off. Like holy crap. And the Arrow stuff, him like getting up on the hind wheel. I dated a horse girl, and the Arrows going up against the what's it called, the yeah, him using it as a shield. I already made the Mission Impossible reference recently, so does that count as making it? We're gonna move on. But yeah, and that was also, it worked really well the way that, and we have the ticking clock and everything, 24 hours. But yeah. Oh, right, and the conversation in the diner. She wasn't kidding. I think that might have actually been 60 seconds or so. But yeah, and he points out you can't just pop in and out. You're just gonna jump back in every time one of us needs your help. And that's, of course, oh, right, that's what happened. Laurel was venomed because of this. Yeah, really, really nicely done. And let's see, I think that brings us to the yeah, and him saying we have to be a family again. Your family needs you. You can't go on like this either. And by the end, Laurel very much does not accept Sarah back. So, yeah. And I think that brings us to the campaign thing. So, yeah. All right. So Felicity didn't love that he raised his voice at her, and she didn't call him out for it, but she's also really, upset by this, and she's struggling to keep this secret. She doesn't want to lose him, but but yeah. And let's see. Yeah, so, she's walking off, and he, asks her, what is going on with you? And I like her saying, so you've noticed that I talk a lot. No, Felicity, that absolutely not. It's a complete surprise. I know I say it a lot, but I really adore her character. She brings so much to the show. Not just the adorkable and tech wizardry, but like her personality. She's such a vital component of Team Arrow. You know, she's the heart and soul and the voice, the communicator, so much of the time. So, but yeah, and she says, there were issues with her mom and her dad, and the yeah, she just has to tell him, and the thing about, is, so what's bothering you? Is it about your family? It's about a family. And let's see. Right, very nicely done on, so Sarah goes to her own grave and from there calls Nissa, and, that is how we, because then, fairly shortly after it cuts back to Oliver and he's looking shocked, so we can deduce, oh, in the interim he was told the secret. But yeah, she goes to the grave because she's ready to die, as long as it means that Nissa is going to leave her family alone, because what motivation does she have for hurting any other Lance? Because, like, who gets hurt on the show? Lance. A lot. And yeah, just really, really well done there. And Oliver going up there, because, like, genuinely, like, we're thinking, is he gonna ruin this for her? And he does manage to, and again, we have that, he manages to give a positive message overall. I love Thea's little look, like, brother, what are you doing? But the he starts out with, it sounds like he's saying she keeps secrets from everyone, but you don't know her. You don't know her like I do. You don't know what she's capable of. For the good of this city. Oliver, you may want to have a conversation with your speechwriter, because this is not the best, Yeah. And he leans in and says, I know. And the yes, so I think that brings us to when so yeah, they go to, a bunch of characters. Oh, right. So the Lances talk in Laurel's apartment, and you have the thing about, why there's something I have to tell you about your sister, and it's like, is he really going to tell her? And we can understand why. He thinks that it's going to help matters, and if not for, like, we can understand why Laurel blames Sarah for their mother being kidnapped. If she hadn't, yeah, she broke the heart of a murderer, and there are consequences to breaking the heart of a murderer. And I like the bit about, the how did she phrase it? I didn't stay because, let's see, because you saved me. I stayed because I loved you, And the so he's about to tell her, and then Laurel, and then gets the phone call. What about Sarah? I'll have to tell you later. And she gets out of the couch, because, like, it would probably be best if she stayed. And I did think they did. It's that kind of thing of, like, On the one hand, a lot of the time when he has to suddenly leave, it's police work, but they were just talking about Sarah, and now we can understand why she follows. And let's see, I think that does bring us to right, very, very cool when Sarah did the climbing with the pole thing, and I like that Dig and Felicity are just standing there like, I didn't think I'd see someone else also do that, and Oliver shows up and they're like, she's been doing that for an hour. Yeah. Like, not gonna lie, years ago when I was at my most fit, I mean, I don't mean to brag, but I could probably have gone for, I think about 1 second and then be like, you know what, I'm gonna leave this to professionals. But she's been doing it for an hour, like, holy crap. And let's see, I think that does bring us to, so yes, they converge, and really, really cool to see, Sarah, comes there, and she took the venom, which, yeah, as soon as we heard that, Sarah left without telling anyone and the venom is missing, yeah, like, I thought, as Team Arrow did, she's gonna poison Nyssa. And, I appreciate Dig being like, why do we hear about the assassin being killed? And Oliver saying, if half the stories I've heard about Rish Al Ghul are true, if Sarah kills his daughter, we're all in trouble. What about the other half? I'm trying not to think about the fact that the other half cancel out the first half. But yeah, let's see. I think, yeah. And the fight where we're also thinking like, oh, please save her, because he did bring the antidote. Which, yeah. It has been a little bit since we last saw Arrow action. Glad that the show every so often does deliver that, because it is really, really cool, And let's see. Yeah, so, he manages to get her the antidote, and, Nyssa does release her in the name of Ra's al Ghul. Seeing the, how far she's willing to go. And it's one of those things, if you love someone, let them go. And I think that does pretty much cover, let's see. Right, I guess I'll just briefly note. So, obviously, as soon as you have, buy and pan characters, you have to be careful not to reinforce some of the really ridiculous stereotypes that are. And, the buy and pan, there are the entire LGBTQ plus community are sometimes painted with this ridiculous thing of like, oh, they're all killers, Obviously, one of the worst depictions are where it's trans people, but sometimes you do have it with buy and pan. And, if Nyssa was the only, well, actually, come to think of it, I guess I am not 100% sure if she's bi, pan, or lesbian, but, she's not straight. And she is, a ruthless killer, but then Sarah isn't, and she's definitely bi or pan. So, it's, yeah, it's acknowledging, they are human and sometimes make mistakes, but they're not, universally, yeah. And it's not like the show doesn't have its share of straight cishet male killers. So, yeah, I think that does bring us to the fireworks going off. It's still not New Year's Eve. But the, yeah, I think, doesn't that bring us to, let's see. Yeah, once Nissa sees that, it is like literally, Sarah would rather die than go back to Raish. Yeah, at that point, you really, and I think that does help somewhat redeem Nissa for the awful things she's done in this episode, which are unquestionably, like, she's done some really evil things, yeah, like letting her go when she sees, and that's the thing, like, she was acting out of love, or at least, she wasn't, what's the word? Ultimately, first and foremost, she wanted Sarah to come back. She could easily have, done more, done things that would have for sure killed. Hypothetically, if she had killed one of the other Lances and then said, I'll keep doing that if you don't come back with me. Yeah, I think that does bring to the, so really, really great there at the end when everyone converged. Right, also, so sometimes the show does get really wonderfully soap opera-y. So Sarah, reveals to Dinah that she's still alive, and then she's like, well, goodbye. But, it's one of those things there's a couple of things. One is, she is about to die herself, and she didn't want to do that without saying goodbye to her mom. And she also, it helps really underline to Nissa that she's doing it for her mother. And yeah, also the thing about, goodbyes are difficult. I guess that's why you never gave me one. It's very impressive that the show can actually make me feel a little bit bad for Nissa, who's like kidnapping and venoming, But I think, oh, right, really loved seeing Canary wield the staff again against the other of Raish's men, the one who was with Nissa. And I think that does, yeah. And Laurel standing there and looking shocked, and it's this great performance where it's like, is she happy? Like, there's emotion on her face, unquestionably, but it's conflicted. We're not sure exactly where she's landing on it for that scene. We find out not very long after. And, yeah. And I do think it works well that she's standing there while the other three are, like, hugging. And, yeah. So yeah, Oliver confronts Moira. It's just so heartbreaking. Like, it looked like they were mending. But yeah, I don't blame him. The thing about, like, she says that she's doing it to protect Thea, and he says, no, it's because you lie. And I kind of want there to be an outtake where she goes, is this because I shot you last year? I appreciate the character doesn't know that. But yeah, I understand where he's coming from, but it really is, at least he is going to keep up appearances, though I can imagine Thea's gonna sense that there's something, and at least he does say he's not gonna derail the campaign. And let's see, I think that does bring us to, is this around in the episode where we get the last of the flashbacks, maybe? So yeah, we have the, let's see, right, I like that we saw her send the text, about meeting on the boat. And yeah, so seeing them, see it on TV, that and she gets so shocked she drops the plate. And I guess she gets the benefit of the doubt because he's not yelling at her about dropping out of college and dropping out of plate holding. But yeah, they see the news, and then not long after, and I guess it's another flashback. We'll do it now. Yeah, we see Moira come by and say, Sarah, your Sarah was on the boat too, and just like, and yeah, so in the first season, it was that we all thought that Sarah was dead, so Laurel was blaming Oliver, not Sarah. And now, yeah, we see the moment that she found out about Sarah, and we see her reaction to Sarah coming back. And yeah, I mean, again, conflicted emotion, because like on the one hand, she's thinking, well, I guess that's another chapter in the autobiography of Sarah, but she's also, yeah, she's thinking she's gone. Yeah, it's a betrayal, to sleep with Laurel's boyfriend after the and I'm sure she is thinking, so I guess that's why Sarah was trying to talk me out of being with Oliver. And it also comes across really hypocritical, at least at the time it might have sounded a little like she was watching out for Laurel, but really she was, trying to keep him to herself. And I think that pretty much gets us to... Yeah, and the fact that Moira several times tries to walk closer to Oliver, and he like holds up his hand and says no. Just, yeah. The show really knows how to pull on our heartstrings. Like, that's... Yeah. I think... Okay, so there's a tiny little bit left. Really love that by the end of the episode, it... So tell me, I know I'm not the only person who thought of it was reminiscent of when Tommy saw through the window Laurel and Oliver together, radioactive, playing. But yeah, when, she says, one thing's for sure, I'm home. And then they get together, and it's this thing of like, okay, so technically it's not like he's with Laurel right now. They haven't been for, months now. Not since the end of season 1. But still a little bit of a betrayal. There's a thing about not getting together with the ex of someone you care about. And the I feel bad for Sarah that Laurel talked to her like that, but it does also say, Sarah does, I mean, I believe that she does love him. She's not doing it to hurt Laurel, but she's doing it even knowing that, like, I mean, at some point Laurel's gonna realize that this is happening, even if Laurel doesn't want to talk to Sarah right now, it's possible that'll change, and family, yeah, just like if they are together, and at this point, I'm not even sure if she's still gonna try to hide the fact that she's back, because she was hiding from Raish, and she's been released, and her entire family already knows she's back. It's gonna make her life significantly easier if she can just, like, I wouldn't say live a normal life, but, just not constantly hide that she's back. And, she's still going to keep hidden that she's the Canary, but yeah, I think well, that brings us to the right, and also the way that it was filmed, because there's like an electric energy between them, and they're standing apart, and then they walk up and kiss, and yeah. I think okay, so there's a tiny bit left with yeah. Let's see. Can hardly wait to see with Slade. You know, I told you to worry about Moira. You don't have to do anything. I'll take care of it. That's gonna be awesome. I can hardly wait to see. Yeah. And let's see. I think that brings us. Let's see. There's at least right. So yeah, Moira and Blood talking campaigns. And he's like, "Can I give you some advice? Drop out." And the thing about during your trial, you painted a picture of you being so weak and frail, and now you're saying you can take care of yourself. So which is it? See, he may himself be a politician, but he knows politicians. So yeah, very nicely done. I also liked early in the episode the thing about, she says she doesn't want to pander, and I think it's Oliver who says, no, it's just campaigning, which, potato, potato, depending on the politician. Now, I think, speaking of, yeah, FD Signifier. Let's see if I can remember the title. I'm afraid my wrists are too sore to look it up right now. Zoran Mamdani, A Complicated Problem. Excellent video. Yes, I think the, yeah, that does just leave family reunion. And yeah, several of them are so happy that Sarah's back. And Laurel, wonderfully filmed and acted. She walks up, she picks up a bottle, opens it, and lays out why she's not letting Sarah back into her life. And just the moment that we see her, with the bottle, it's like, oh no. And it's this thing of like, she might have felt similar, close to this way, if not for, the recent events in her life that didn't, that weren't Sarah's doing. Like, one can understand why she blames Sarah about, she kind of blames both Sarah and Oliver for, the, yeah, him cheating on her. But the, yeah, and with their mom being kidnapped and this whole thing, and yeah, she is hitting rock bottom, and yeah, just really, really nicely done. And the thing about, yeah, Officer Lance starts to say something, and she says, don't say another word, because he's been lecturing and interfering in her life recently, from her point of view, at least. I mean, we know he's trying to help. And, Sarah says, don't take it out on Dad. Blame me. And Laurel says, I do blame you. Which, like, yeah. That did not de-escalate things quite as much as, yeah. But the, yeah, just really, really well done. Another thing, I'm not sure if I've said this before, but I think they're doing a really good job with Laurel as far as, one thing you have to really be careful about when you're doing a character like hitting rock bottom. If you're not very careful, you do risk alienating the audience. Like, you really don't, well, unless that is what you're going for, but here we're not supposed to hate Laurel. We're supposed to hope that she recovers, and that can be very difficult. American audiences have been trained by a lot of their media to think that addicts are just, losers who need better self-control. And, this show helps fight back against that. And part of that is that we saw Laurel as a human being before, she started spiraling. And obviously in real life, addicts are human beings, but there's a lot of American media that, part of the war on drugs, which, you don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up yourself. It was about profit. It wasn't about protecting people. I think that does bring us to... Yeah, and Laurel says multiple times, "Get out," until Sarah does. And, yeah. I think that does bring us to... Yeah, I think that does cover the entire thing, actually. Okay, just real quick, mentally fast forward through the entire episode, see if there is anything at all. I do look forward to seeing the next time Oliver and Felicity talk, because I wouldn't rule out, Moira has known Oliver for a lot longer. I can imagine that he is going to... It's going to hurt that Felicity told him. And let's see. And it might further complicate matters. So yeah, there's a couple of things, like, while, I don't think that he thinks she's gonna spill, but the fact that she does know the secret does change their relationship. His secret identity. Several secrets that she knows. He promised that she wouldn't lose him right before she told. She might not have told if he hadn't promised, so that can also be, part of complicating that. I think that does cover... So the... Yeah, I continue to think they're doing such a good job using the League of Assassins. The... It's where Malcolm got his training and the ability to survive something that seemed like he shouldn't have been able to. Before we got the explanation, it's how Sarah, her entire, after the island, that's what happened to her. And they've come back for her several times now. Yeah. I think that does cover... Yeah. Gonna do another episode very, very soon. And I really want there to be an outtake where, so when, Laurel, drops the plate because she's so shocked, because it's like, how's the volume back up? Which one of us turned it back up? Because one of us clearly just turned the volume down.